Hey guys, tonight we tumble into the candlelit marble halls of ancient Corinth, where you're tracing the curve of Medusa's legendary locks as if they were river currents of molten gold. You probably won't survive this without losing a strand, or at least a few precious follicles to envy or outright petrification. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments so we know if you're combing tangles in Tokyo or brushing braids in Barcelona. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand before the sculpted statue of a maiden whose hair once shone brighter than Helios at noon, each curl a testament to divine favor. Mainstream historical fact: early vase paintings and temple reliefs depict priestesses of Athena, wearing long, intricately curled hair held in place by olive wood combs and resinous oils sourced from sacred groves. In her youth, Medusa's tresses were the envy of Corinthian noblewomen, believed to carry Athena's blessing and a fragrant hint of temple incense. You reach out to touch one carved lock, imagining the weight of those woven strands. Quirky tidbit: Greek women in the 6th century BCE sometimes added crushed poppy petals to their comb oils for a faint narcotic scent. Nature's version of dry shampoo meets DIY aromatherapy. You can almost smell the honeyed lily, root perfume still clinging to the stone. Her hair wasn't just a fashion statement, but a ritual instrument. Every morning, Medusa would brush those golden coils before a polished bronze mirror, the echoes of her comb crisp on cold stone floors. Then came offerings, honey cakes and rose petals dusted into the ends of her braids as an act of devotion. Historians still argue whether Medusa's hair rituals predated her doom, or were instituted by temple priests to appease Athena, whose own hair was described in Homeric hymns as twisted with gold and adamant. You lean closer and catch a whisper of oil-slick residue, as if her hair care routine left invisible trails in time. One light joke: if only she'd invested in a detangler, maybe those slippery snakes would have stayed calm. But history chews on what-ifs like a goat on time, and we're left untangling the myths. Tonight, we'll glide through each curl and scale, literally unlocking the secrets of combs carved from oak, ointments steeped in bay laurel, and the mirror that saved her from self-petrification. We'll ride the tide of gossamer memories, from the temple's marble basin, where she rinsed those curls to the cursed moment. Helena's wrath turned hair into serpents. Every coil tells a story, every oil drop holds a prayer, and every mirror glint hints at a tragedy woven into beauty. Stay right here, because in the next section you'll experience Medusa's early morning routine like you're right beside her. Fine brown ink outlines on parchment. Come alive with ASMR tinged details. And yes, we'll revisit that reality check. You probably still won't survive this without spilling a drop of oil or two. You glide along the marble colonnade of Athena's temple, fingertips brushing cool stone, where once Medusa's hair caught every flicker of torchlight. Now imagine those golden tresses not merely as strands of hair, but as living symbols of divine favor, each lock a testament to the goddess's blessing conferred upon her chosen priestess. In Corinth, long before serpents writhed where soft curls lay, hair was regal currency, a sacrament as precious as temple oil. Every dawn, Medusa paused before the temple's inner sanctum for the rite of the oil anointment, to ceremonious pour of virgin olive oil, freshly pressed from Athena's sacred groves on the slopes of Mount Olympus, mingled with honey resin. Mainstream historical fact: Greek temple rituals often included sacred anointings, using olive oil from specific groves, believed to be blessed by the gods. A practice recorded in 5th century BCE, inscriptions found at Delphi and Dodona. You can almost inhale the slightly bitter aroma of freshly crushed olives, a fragrance meant to fortify piety and bind mortal flesh to divine presence. As the oil dripped along her scalp, Medusa would offer libations of wine mixed with rosewater to Athena's statue, tiny splashes that glinted on bronze like morning dew. Quirky tidbit: some scholars note that priestesses in the archaic period attached tiny mirrors to their braids, a mix of bronze and polished bronze shards, to catch stray light and reflect the goddess's eye. You imagine those little mirrors tinkling together like distant laughter as she moved, each shimmer a tiny prayer. You reach a shallow basin carved from Parian marble, its rim inscribed with Athena's olive leaf motif. Here Medusa combed her hair for hours, the teeth of her olive wood comb gliding through preternaturally smooth locks. Fragrant petals, rose, iris, poppy, were tucked between curls, releasing subtle perfume with every breath. Historians still argue whether these floral additives were purely cosmetic or part of a healing repertoire. Contemporary medical potpourri hint at poppy's mild sedative properties, but ritual texts claim its scent soothed the crown chakra against divine wrath. You lean closer to the basin, noticing faint traces of red ochre dust, perhaps pigments from Himera's blush reserved for the goddess of day. In some rituals, Medusa's hair was dusted with powdered cinnabar to catch light and stir ore. Dripping oil would activate the pigment, creating a slow burn glow, akin to embers beneath flame. Mixing pigments with oils wasn't unique to Corinth. Vase paintings depict Athenian women using ochre to redden hair ends for ceremonial dances, a practice noted in Aristophanes' comedies as hair dipped in the sunset. As you swirl your hand in the basin, ripples distort your reflection, reminding you of the mirror's double edge, both tool and trap. One light joke bubbles up: if Medusa had Snapchat filters, she'd still rely on analog oil baths. But humor here is gentle, a breath between ancient echoes. Beyond the basin stands a low pedestal supporting carved plaques illustrating votive offerings, hair locks fashioned into bronze wreaths and left for Athena, a ritual called kirima kernastai. According to archaeological finds in the Athenian Acropolis storerooms, women offered hair to deity statues in gratitude or pleading. Plentiful groves of votive locks found in 6th century temple caches attest to its popularity. You picture Medusa severing a single lock in joyous humility, that golden curl drifting into bronze preservation. Yet scholars still debate whether Medusa's locks were offered voluntarily or plucked in penitence. Some argue that priestesses were compelled to sacrifice a lock each year to renew divine favor, while others suggest volunteers laid strands as tokens of personal devotion. Vase imagery, however, shows women reclining under olive trees, scissors in hand, offering hair with serene expressions, an act of love rather than penance. You stand, imagining that scene: Medusa beneath a towering olive, scissors glinting, hair slipping into sculpted baskets lined with laurel leaves. A mule, perhaps Medusa's practice mount, munches nearby, unconcerned by the unfolding ritual. Later, priests would braid each votive lock into statues' manes, integrating human strands into divine iconography, a blend of mortal and immortal. After the ritual, Medusa would gather her hair back into an intricate updo, secured by pins of bone or bronze tipped with tiny owl motifs. Athena's sacred bird. Fringe tidbit: some ancient combs unearthed near temple ruins bear owl-shaped handles, suggesting these tools served dual purpose as hair ornaments and temple symbols. You can almost feel the weight of those pins cool against the skin, a souvenir of piety pressed into flesh. Every morning's routine reaffirmed Medusa's bond with Athena, but it also raised her status in Corinthian society. Noble matrons sought to mimic her style, sending hair samples to distant workshops in Sicyon and Athens for replication in ivory and gold. Hairstyles sprouted new inventions: elevated buns adorned with ribbons and metal coils, exported across the Aegean as the Medusa coiffure. By the 5th century BCE, inscriptions advertise locks dyed in Corinthian amber, implying the use of plant resins to deepen hair color to a honeyed hue. You wonder if Medusa ever noted her reflection, seeing the ripple effect of her style across city-states. Yet some critics of the era sneered at the obsession with Medusa's hair. Philosophers like Diogenes scoffed that no mortal locks deserve divine breath, positing that hair care rituals wasted resources better spent on virtue. Historians still argue whether these critiques represented minority philosophical disdain or early stirrings of cultural ennui with priestly extravagance. Ceramics reveal both sumptuous images of Medusa and satirical vignettes where her hair brushes become oversized fans, flapping at idle crowds. As the morning sun filters through temple columns, you inhale the mingled scents of olive oil, rose and incense smoke, each waft carrying centuries of devotion. You reach for your own comb, if only to feel solidarity with the mythical priestess who held power in her hands and divine wrath in her curls. Every tooth of the comb seems alive, embedded with memory and myth. Tonight in Section 3, we'll trace Medusa's youth rituals, how she learned to braid, the songs sung to settle stray curls, and the communal ceremonies that bonded priestesses through shared grooming rites. But for now, exhale slowly, feeling the temple's hush settle around you like a gentle shawl. You rise before dawn's first violet whisper, padding across dew, slick marble to the temple's outer courtyard, where young priestesses gather in a half-moon circle. Here, under the creeping glow of oil lamps, Medusa learned her first hair care rites, a choreography of combs, oils, and whispered prayers passed down through generations. You approach the circle and feel the cool breeze ruffle your hair, prompting a shiver before the ritual begins. Each morning, before any fiery torch was lit, the head priestess presented a censer of laurel incense, its smoke curling like tiny serpents in the twilight. Mainstream historical fact: laurel bay branches were sacred to Athena, often burned in temples to purify the air and honor the goddess, as described in 5th century BCE. Inscriptions at the temple of Athena, Alea, in Tegea. The laurel's sharp, balsamic scent sharpened senses and signaled the sanctity of the hour. You inhale deeply as the laurel smoke drifts among kneeling novices. Then comes the water of purity, chalices of cool spring water collected from a nearby grotto, said to flow from Athena's own tears. Each priestess dips her fingers, splashes her brow, and gently wets her hair, softening tangled curls like a canvas primed for paint. Fringe tidbit: some coastal Greek communities actually bottled sea spring water for rituals, believing its minerals boosted hair sheen and kept brittle ends at bay, a natural gloss long before modern serums. Next, you join Medusa and peers in the braiding ring, where hair care transforms into communal art. Two priestesses work on each crown. One combs while the other weaves, fingers tracing patterns through damp locks. Corinthian youths favored a triple-strand plait, curled into a low chignon, symbolizing mind, body, and spirit entwined. You feel a gentle tug as someone braids your own hair, the rhythmic pull almost hypnotic, which pass between fingers echoing the temple's chants. In the center, Medusa's golden hair gleams under lamp light, thick, vibrant, and alive. Today she braids 3 smaller plaits into the larger crown, penning each with pins made of stag horn tipped in copper. Historians still argue whether stag horn combs originated as practical tools or ritual symbols. Some metal detector finds in Delphi suggest they were prized grave goods, while literary fragments imply they were everyday implements in temple workshops. You run a finger along your braid, imagining the stag horn's cool, translucent surface. With braids secure, the priestesses anoint ends with a sweet tart mixture of honey, pomegranate juice, and crushed myrtle berries. You taste a drop at the fingertip, surprising tang that crackles on your tongue. a sticky garnish for artful hair. Quirky tidbit: in Corinth, some youths added powdered mallow root to the ointment, believing it soothed scalp itch, and added a pastel pink hue when sunlight struck droplets at the braid tips. Nature's hair dye and conditioner in one. The final flourish. A delicate wreath of olive leaves is laid atop each crown, branches woven with tiny white flowers called Athena's breath. You feel the wreath's cool leaves brush against your forehead, a tickle that prompts a smile. Each leaf adores your skin like a soft kiss from the goddess herself. As the wreath settles, the lead priestess intones a blessing. May your locks carry wisdom, your heart carry courage. You echo the phrase, voice low, matching breath to braid's gentle sway. After the wreath, you and Medusa file toward the Hall of Mirrors, where polished bronze slabs lean against pillars. Each priestess examines her reflection, adjusting stray strands and smoothing braid patterns. Sois rescendiens, solentesa strands and smoothing braid patterns. The hall's polished surfaces blur reflections, showing hair doubled, tripled, a mass of interlocking curls, a visual prayer to Athena's generous gift. One light joke slips out. I'd envy my own hairstyle if I weren't busy fixing it, and the girls giggle, a soft chime in the hushed hall. Then comes the mirror step. Priestess circle the hall 3 times, their image multiplying until every angle reveals a different braid, a different curl. Some ancient mosaics depict this ritual as a dance, robes swirling, hair catching torchlight. Mainstream historical fact: mirror rituals feature in several Greek mystery cults, where reflections symbolize self-knowledge and transformation. Fragments of Pythagorean texts hint that novices bowed thrice before sacred mirrors to reconcile mortal self with divine potential. As you complete the 3rd circuit, the lead priestess removes your wreath, tucks it into a recessed niche above the temple door, a silent offering of that day's devotion. You step out into early sunlight, braid still damp, oils gleaming. The courtyard's white marble cools your feet, and you pause to savor the ritual's afterglow, hair singing with laurel, honey, and lacrimal spring. But questions linger beneath the chants. Historians still argue whether these daily braiding rites were originally private priestess practices, or later formalized as spectacle for temple visitors seeking divine favor. Some argue the public drama of the mirror step drew pilgrims, while others maintain it remained esoteric, hidden behind temple doors. Vase paintings from Corinth show both public and private scenes, leaving scholars divided. You lift your braid, tugging gently to test its hold. It feels secure, like armor against mortal woes, though fate will twist Medusa's locks into living vipers. In this moment you share her beauty circle, connected by oil, braid, and whisper soft chants. Every coil is a song, every plait a pact between mortal and goddess, every oily sheen a promise of protection. Tonight, when we reconvene, we'll trace the combs carved by temple artisans, how each tooth was shaped to slip between curls without snagging a strand, and how Medusa's own comb became an heirloom worthy of Homer's odes. For now, brush your hand along a pillow or a strand of your own hair. Listen for the faint rustle of olive leaf and honey echoing in memory. You step inside the temple's inner sanctum, where bronzed combs hang like votive offerings beside burning incense burners. Here, Medusa's morning ritual transforms from braid to polish, as she tames those golden strands into a mantle fit for a goddess. You approach a low table where combs, oils, and perfumes lie arrayed like a jeweler's fine wares, each tool awaiting her touch. First, the combs. Mainstream historical fact: ancient Greek artisans carved combs from olive wood, boxwood, and sometimes stag horn, favoring fine teeth for smoothing and wide teeth for detangling, as evidenced by finds in 4th century BCE Bronze Age workshops on Crete. You lift a comb of polished boxwood, its teeth slender and perfectly spaced, running it through your own hair. You feel how each tooth glides with soothing resistance, pulling away last night's sleep, tangles and minuscule dust from torch embers. Next to it, a staghorn comb gleams under torchlight, its ivory hue etched with incised laurel leaves. You hold it at arm's length, imagining the delicate carving process. Stag antlers seasoned, sliced and filed with flint tools, until each tooth gleamed smooth. Fringe tidbit: some priestesses believed the staghorn comb brought strength and agility, traits of the animal, into the wearer's spirit, a cosmetic talisman as much as a grooming implement. You test the comb along your forearm. It glides coolly, a brush through silk. Then come the oils: amphorae of virgin olive oil, infused with myrtle, almond, and occasionally rare scents like saffron or juniper. You dip a fingertip into a shallow bowl of myrtle-infused oil, its aroma crisp, green, lightly floral. Then warm it between palms before massaging it into your scalp. The oil's texture is viscous but not greasy, coating each strand in a thin protective film. Quirky tidbit: in Corinth, some women added crushed mallow petals to their oils for extra slip, believing it soothed itch and fortified brittle ends, a practical precursor to modern leave-in conditioners. You pour a drop of almond oil onto the boxwood comb, watching it bead along the teeth before smoothing through your hair's mid-lengths. The effect is immediate. Hair catches torchlight, strands separate, and a subtle sheen emerges. You pause, breathing deep, and sense the nutty sweetness clinging to each fiber. Perfumes arrive next, in small alabaster vials sealed with wax and tiny owl feather stoppers. The first is rose water, distilled by temple alchemists from petals gathered at dawn. You uncork it, and a gentle swirl of floral sweetness rises, delicate as a summer breeze. You sprinkle a few drops across your palms, rub them together, and cup the scent beneath your nose before brushing lightly through your hair's surface. Beside rosewater sits poppy petal essence, its rosy pink drops bitterly sweet. A dab behind each ear lets the fragrance waft outward, a heady note that hints at both slumber and sedation. You inhale, notes of honeyed narcotic tickling your senses. Nature's own dry shampoo meets aromatherapy. Historians still argue whether poppy oil was used primarily for its scent or as a mild sedative during long temple vigils, with some medical potpourri listing it as a remedy for insomnia, while poetic fragments speak only of the dream-kissed aroma. You move on to a darker vial, saffron tincture, its threads steeped in oil until the mixture glows like liquid sunset. A single drop suffices. Too much leaves hair brassy. You swirl it into the ends, where curls gather, imagining each golden petal's power distilled into hue and health. With combs and oils applied, you reach for the final flourish, a dusting of crushed iris root, mixed with fine white clay. Roofing tile-sized bowls hold pastel mounds, violet for summer hair lightening, ochre for autumn warmth. You dip a brush into violet iris powder, sweep it along your parting, and watch the color settle into oils like watercolor. Ritual purity meets cosmetic effect. Quirky tidbit: some temple decrees limited clay powder use to festivals, while others turned a blind eye, possibly because powdered pigments could hide minor blemishes or early gray, a luxury mortals paid dearly for in provincial markets. As your hair gleams and smells, you turn to the polished bronze mirror. Its surface distorts slightly, catching every oil-slick strand. You brush away the few rebellious flyaways with a silver-tipped timbor comb, adorned with tiny owl figures on its handle, setting each hair in place. The final look is ethereal, waves of honeyed gold, perfumed and polished to a queen's radiance. Before leaving, Medusa offered one last prayer, waving a small laurel sprig over her head, scattering fresh leaves into her hair like confetti. The laurel's crisp scent anchored the ritual, a reminder of patronage and protection. Studies of temple inventories reveal laurel offerings numbered in the hundreds annually, testifying to the ritual's importance. Yet scholars still debate whether these lavish routines were exclusive to high-ranking priestesses or more widely practiced by temple attendants. Some vase paintings and relief carvings depict only a single figure, presumably high priestess, undergoing combing rites, while other sources hint at communal grooming for dozens of novices on festival mornings. The truth likely lies between periodic public spectacles coupled with daily private care. You set aside combs, oils, and powders, the temple's hush returning as if it never stirred. Your hair lies bejeweled and scented, a living tapestry of divine favor and artisan skill. As you step back into the courtyard, you carry with you the memory of polished pine combs, gleaming stag horn, and scented ambrosia, tools that once prepared Medusa for worship, unaware that one day those same locks would wield petrifying power. Tonight's next section will trace Athena's curse, a single word that turned goddess, blessed strands into writhing serpents, and how Medusa fought to preserve her hair routine against scales and fangs. For now, brush a finger through your own hair, let it glide and shine with imagined oils, and remember that every strand once told a story of ritual, devotion, and divine beauty. You slip through the temple's dimly lit corridor, heart fluttering like a moth caught in torchlight, following the echo of clinking combs and dripping oils. Two ahead, Athena's inner sanctum gapes open, marble cool and cavernous, every carved column a silent witness. You step into the chamber where Medusa once knelt, comb in hand, golden curls brushing her shoulders. Today, that memory shivers on the air, ripe for Athena's wrath. You find her at the altar, hands lifted in prayer, curls cascading like molten bronze beneath the goddess's carved visage. Mainstream historical fact in early Greek tragedy fragments and Apollodorus's library, Athena's jealousy stems from Medusa's beauty being compared to the goddess's own, hubris punishable by the gods under Homeric law, where mortal pride in divine domain invited severe curses. You feel the weight of that law pressing in, like the hush before a storm. Then Athena's storm breaks a single word, Hegon, hisses through the flicker of torch flames. You hear it as if whispered behind your ear, a syllable that snaps air like brittle reed. Medusa's comb clatters on marble. Oil droplets scatter like captured stars across the floor. The goddess's statue seems to lean forward, eyes aflame, hand raised as though it could strike. Shadows deepen, flickering across Medusa's face, and in that split breath, everything changes. Your pulse races as you watch her fingers rush to her hair. The first contour shift is subtle, a wriggle, a twitch at the nape where curls once lay. Then a hiss, two slender forms slither past her ear, tiny tongues flicking in the gloom. Quirky tidbit, some vase paintings from 5th century Athens depict precursed Medusa, with a single snake coiled into her bun as a decorative motif, hinting that the myth may have evolved from earlier chthonic serpent goddess iconography. Snakes as protective symbols gone awry. You sense that origin in each slender coil. You step closer, toes silent on cold stone, and witness the full spectacle. Her hair fractures into dozens of hissing serpents, emerald eyes glinting where curls once sparkled. Each snake flexes independently, scales shifting like liquid metal. The air thickens with their quiet writhes, faint rattles deep inside their throats. One serpent lifts its head, flicks a black tongue where Medusa's forehead should be, as if tasting Athena's anger itself. Your skin prickles. You reach to steady yourself against a column, fingertip brushing carved laurel leaves. The cold stone reminds you of earlier rituals, braids, blessings, oil baths, all now meaningless in this crucible of divine fury. Historians still argue whether Medusa's transformation was a single instantaneous event or a gradual unraveling over a night spent in the goddess's glare. Some Orphic hymns suggest slow petrification of hair, while vase narratives depict a flash change as swift as lightning. You feel both truths in the chamber's charged hush. Medusa staggers, her knees sliding across the marble floor, hands reaching for fading braids, only to clutch writhing serpents instead. One snake jerks away, hisses softly, then coils around her wrist like a living bracelet. You want to help, stretch out a hand, but your reflection in a bronze shield displays frozen horror. You probably shouldn't have leaned so close. A light joke surfaces, despite your pounding heart. Well, at least she won't need conditioner anymore. Granted, humor here feels like a sideways crutch, but in darkness you cling to any ember of relief. The snakes hiss in chorus, a sound less fearful than sad, like frightened children behind barred windows. You see, Athena's statue watches, silent and immovable, draped in shadows. You imagine the goddess's thoughts, pride wounded, honor defended, a fury that demanded cosmic-level discipline. Medusa's beauty wasn't mere vanity, it was worship at a mortal's peril. The line between praise and blasphemy blurred, and Medusa stood on that fault line. Now her hair is living lightning, each serpent a shard of divine punishment. You step across the altar's threshold, careful not to disturb spilled olive oil, and crouch beside Medusa. Her eye meets yours, if you can call it an eye, and for a flash, you glimpse her humanity etched in torment, longing for favor, grief for lost curls, shock as vivid as Athena's stone gaze. Then a silk smooth hiss interrupts, and you stagger back as a snake snaps its jaws, silhouette black against torchlight. Quirky tidbit in some coastal myths, Medusa's serpentine hair was believed to guard hidden grottos, snakes sensing intruders before ears could catch the drip of underground springs. You picture tiny guardians wraithing in dark caves, a protective instinct twisted by divinity's curse, protection mutated into peril, beauty weaponized as defense. As Medusa presses herself against a column, the snakes ease their tension, coiling like extravagant scarves. You note her hands tremble, brushing scales on her temples as if soothing pets gone feral. Her gaze darts from snake to statue, to you, confusion etched in reptilian pupils. You hold her gaze, wordless, empathy bridging mortal and monster. Behind you, the temple door creaks. A priestess returning to deliver the morning offerings, aghast at the transformation. You gently turn Medusa's head away, shielding her from prying eyes. One serpent loosens, tongue flicking your wrist, sampling the scent of olive oil and incense still clinging to you. You shudder but manage to whisper, "It's okay," as though comfort could bridge the divine divide. Outside, the early sun gilds temple steps. The priestess gasp rings through corridors, and torch fires gutter as if the air itself trembles. You know you must leave. Remain here means risking turn to stone yourself. But you pause to catch one last view of Medusa's serpents writhing in silent sorrow. Each snake's coil seems a strand of her past beauty, each hiss a lament for trust betrayed. As you slip out, the statue's silhouette blurs around the edges, shadows creeping where snakes now glisten. A faint echo of Medusa's whispered prayer, "Why?" drifts behind you, touching marble pillars before dissolving. You grip the comb in your hand, its teeth empty of oil, and dreadfully useful, if only for memory's sake. Exhale through lips pressed together, the chamber's chill clinging to your breath. The odor of incense, oil, and discarded hair. Ribbon fades behind you, replaced by corridor's simple scent of wax and stone. Athena's curse remains alive in that inner sanctum, a living tapestry of punishment woven through Medusa's immortal hair. Tonight, when you return, we'll track Medusa's first attempts to tame her snake locks, how she fashioned talismans, enlisted sympathetic priests, and discovered ointments that soothed serpent scales. You'll feel every hiss, every tiny scales shift, each morning's sorrowful detangling. But for now, stand still in the temple's threshold, comb in hand, and let the weight of that single goddess' spoken words sink in, transformed, cursed, yet still undeniably human beneath those writhing strands. You wake in a cold sweat, heart hammering, as if your own scalp has sprouted a nest of vipers overnight, which in Medusa's case, it indeed has. The temple's marble floor beneath your fingers feels impossibly distant, yet the soft hiss of scales against stone is immediate, a waking nightmare you cannot unhear. You sit up, comb clutched in one hand, and the first snake flicks its tongue at your cheek. Its taste is coppery, electric, like grabbing a live wire draped in olive oil. Your breath catches. You might have expected that initial horror to freeze you in place, but adrenaline courses through your limbs, urging action. You cradle a single serpent, untangling it gently from a neighbor's coil, an impossible act of compassion. Mainstream historical fact, in Hellenistic medical texts like the Hippocratic On Airs, waters, places, snake bites were treated with poultices of clay and wine, suggesting ancient Greeks recognized both the peril and possible salve within serpent venom. You imagine Medusa scavenging such clays from the temple courtyard, smearing them carefully on tiny fangs before coaxing each creature into a calmer state. You slide the stag horn comb into tangled mass, steel-tipped teeth, catching scales and sheen, a blend of hair and serpent that resists every stroke. One snake wraps loosely around your wrist as if seeking solace. You whisper, "Easy now," and it settles, coiling twice around your finger. A moment of fragile connection amid chaos. Fringe tidbit. Some scholars note that Thessalian witches bound snakes to their forearms, believing the creatures conveyed prophetic dreams. Perhaps Medusa's new hair doubled as dreamcatcher, each snake a nightly oracle, whispering divine riddles. Your scalp prickles, too many heads to soothe at once. You tremble as you dab olive oil and honey salve at the base of each neck, spine, hoping viscosity encourages calm. A faint clink of comb and a hiss answers you. The mixture simmers with sweet earthiness, a balm that took temple assistants hours to prepare. Crushed bay laurel, ground mallow root, dill seed bruised under pestle. You taste a drop at the fingertip, mustard tang and floral warmth, a sensory anchor against panic. A low moan from the hall beyond reminds you of mortal peril. Anyone glimpsing the hissing cascade risks a frozen fate. You press a hand to the temple wall, tracing laurel leaf carvings for stability. You mutter under your breath, one snake at a time, and attend to the next. Historians still argue whether Medusa's punishing transformation was meant as permanent exile from temple duties, or as an immediate test of her priestly devotion, with some vase-painted fragments depicting her tending serpents as sacred guardians, rather than monstrous aberrations. You shift weight, mindful of coils gliding against marble. A stray scale falls at your feet, like a silver petal, intimate proof of the surreal. You scoop it into your palm, brushing it against your thumb, marveling at its iridescence. Then you remember the canine tooth comb stored at your side. It's too small for human hair now, but perfect for teasing apart tiny snake tendrils. You switch combs, using the fine teeth of a bone pick, so delicate it fits between echelon scales, coaxing them into a semblance of order. Your arms ache from constant lifting. Each snake's weight is negligible alone, but monumental in assembly. You pause, forehead pressed to the cool column, and take a shuddering breath. The echo of your exhale ripples through scales like wind across reeds. You glance at a fallen olive oil lamp, its glass shattered, oil pooling in amber rivulets. A sigh escapes you, part relief at survival, part mourning for lost ritual purity. In a daring move, you drape a fine linen veil, once used for nightly vows, across the back of your head. Beads of amber and garnet sewn into its hem weigh it down just enough to coax snakes into temporary submission. You secure it with pins, the veil billowing slightly, each serpent's head peeking from beneath like curious wraiths. Quirky tidbit: Egyptian queens used similar veils woven with gold thread to control elaborate wigs. Perhaps double purpose, veils were more widespread than surviving sources suggest. You pause to catch your reflection in a bronze basin, mud-blended hair, serpent swaying, your own pale face framed by scale and linen. Fear flickers in your eyes, but is met by fierce determination. One tiny snake emerges from under the veil, its muzzle brushing your temple. You murmur, "I've got you," and it coils around your finger in gratitude, a small victory. Walking past the altar, you enact the mirror step again, this time solo, beneath torchlight that exaggerates every shadow. Your image multiplies, a woman with living crown, each reflection a variation on horror and beauty. Rather than fleeing, you circle thrice, braid, veil, snake ensemble, shifting in measured grace. By closing the circuit, you reclaim a ritual once communal, forging a new rite of self-acceptance. A light joke escapes your lips. Sullen nights just got more exclusive, and your own laughter ricochets oddly in the chamber. The tension eases, if only briefly. You return to the combs and oils laid out for later use, selecting another olive wood comb for final detangling. Each stroke feels like a ceremony of adaptation. Here you are both priestess and outcast, beauty and beast. Outside, the temple's threshold brightens with morning light. You step through as if passing between worlds, one where hair was tribute, one where hair is the battlefield. You press a scale to your lips, tasting salt and faint oil. It may be the oil of devotion, or the bloodless sweat of survival. Either way, it is yours. Tonight, when we reconvene, we'll trace Medusa's crafting of protective head wraps and enchanted veils, how spells woven into linen chased away unruly snakes and prying eyes alike. Sepels and vol. Tonight, when we reconvene, we'll trace Medusa's crafting of protective head wraps and enchantment. But for now, rub your own scalp gently, mimic the calm you've coaxed from chaos. Listen for the hiss, soft gratitude of each coil settling in place. You slip from your pillows as the moon rides high above the temple courtyard, its pearly light pooling across the marble steps. You carry your ewer of distilled spring water into the herbarium, where every leaf and petal quivers with dew. This is the hour of the midnight infusion, when Medusa's hair care elixir truly awakens. You pause at the threshold, inhaling the mingled fragrances of night-blooming orchids and crushed myrrh. The air hums with latent magic, as though the very stones remember Athena's gift. You recall the promise made to you, perfection in every coil, every scale. Tonight this promise will be sealed. Gently, you gather handfuls of ravenwort, its petals black as obsidian, but edged in silvery frost. You add stalks of rodent orchid, whose bulbs exude a faint luminescence under moonlight. Each plant was chosen for its unique properties. Ravenwort, to ward off brittle breakage. Rodent orchid, for its regenerative enzymes. Into your cauldron of warmed spring water, you drop precisely 7 petals of nightshade, plucked earlier and kept between silken layers to preserve their potency. You whisper their names: belladonna, atropine, solanine. These are not poisons tonight, but guardians of strength, coaxing each strand to hold its shape against the gale and the scourge of salt spray. With a slender bone spatula, you stir the brew 3 times clockwise, calling upon the warmth of Helios to kindle the infusion's heart. Then you reverse 3 turns widdershins, invoking the hush of Hecate's shadows. Each rotation is measured, deliberate, infused with intention. Small motes of moon dust you collected on Artemis's Eve drift down, caught in the swirl. They cling to the surface of the liquid, morphing it from pale silver to molten mercury. You pause to inspect the color, a sign of balance. Too dark, and the hair will harden like forged steel. Too light, and it will soften like newly fallen snow. This shade, the precise midpoint, ensures serpentine pliability without sacrificing resilience. As the infusion bubbles at the rim, you add a teaspoon of crushed gorgonis moss. This moss, nurtured in hidden grottos beneath Sarpedon's cliffs, holds the memory of your ancestors. It restores vitality to the hair's root, reinforcing each follicle as though planting seeds in fertile soil. The cauldron hisses softly, steam curling like tendrils reaching for the moon. You recite the old words of blessing, quiet but resonant. By fleece of fleece and scale of scale, grant strength to strand, avert betrayal. Root of earth and breath of air, bind in unity, beyond compare. Your breath clouds in the cooling air, then settles as you draw a deep, steadying inhale. It's time to transfer the infusion into your alabaster phial, its surface etched with the likeness of Athena's owl. With practiced hands, you pour the liquid down the curved neck. The mercury-like stream catches the light, refracting into a spectrum of pale blues and greens. You seal it with beeswax from hives, tended by Themis priestess, wax that never melts, never cracks. This elixir, once locked within, will endure until dawn. Back in your chamber, you settle before the polished bronze basin. Flickering oil lamps cast shadows that dance across the walls, shapes flickering like living serpents. You uncork the phial, releasing a scent that blends honeyed resin with damp moss, a fragrance that feels both ancient and immediate. Dipping your fingers, you draw a small bead of liquid between your thumb and forefinger. You brush it against your scalp, and immediately the roots respond, a subtle warmth, as if greeting a lover's hand. Working methodically, you press the elixir into every section, each scale-coated lock, mindful that this is no mere cosmetic, it is armor. The elixir seeps into the skin, quenching dryness and sealing the protective keratin sheath you prepared earlier with olive oil pomade. You massage in slow spirals, guiding the serpents of your hair into perfect alignment. You feel them stir beneath your touch, not as mindless coils, but as sentient guardians, aware of your hand and yielding in appreciation. They release a soft, sibilant hiss, like a whisper of gratitude, an affirmation that the infusion has found its mark. Once every strand is anointed, you call upon Poseidon's favor to lock in the moisture. You press your palms to either side of your head and murmur, "By the tide's embrace, remain beyond decay." The room seems to pulse with energy. The lamps flicker, and for a heartbeat you sense the sea's vast depths stirring in resonance. Your hair will now resist salt's corrosive kiss, as surely as a hull of finest Corinthian galleon. You fetch a length of silk cloth, dyed the deep green of olive groves at dusk's glory, and wrap it carefully around your head. This is the curing wrap. It breathes, yet holds the warmth close, ensuring the elixir matures fully over the next 4 hours. You fasten it with a simple knot upon your crown, a silent covenant between host and infusion. The silk's weight is negligible, yet you feel its promise as you settle back onto your cushions. Lying in the quiet glow, you reflect on the journey thus far. You recall the first time you touched your transformed hair, each scale glinting like armor plate, and the awe that surged through you. You remember the sting of doubt, the fear that this ritual might fail, that you would awaken with brittle shards instead of supple serpents. And yet here you are, in the stillness of midnight, poised for the final rite at dawn. You whisper to the wrapping silk, a private benediction. Stay with me, through storm and stone, through pilgrim's path and warrior's throne. Outside, the temple's guardians shift in their alcoves, vigilant, even at this hour. You hear their silent footfalls upon chiseled marble, Watch the lanterns outside your window flicker as they make their rounds. They do not intrude on your ritual. They respect the sanctity of your hair care routine, as they would the oracle's chamber. Beyond them, the city sleeps, blissfully unaware of the delicate alchemy unfolding within these walls. Sleep beckons, and you close your eyes just as the first hint of pink brushes the horizon. In your dreams, you feel the tendrils of your hair extend like roots, delving into the earth's core, drawing up strength from the very bones of the world. You see yourself standing atop the Acropolis, hair aglow with 1,000 tiny suns, each a promise of protection and perfection. When the dawn light finally washes over you, the silken wrap will come away easily, yielding to reveal hair that shimmers with the promise of invincibility. But for now you rest, cradled between shadow and light, secure in the knowledge that every component, the midnight dew, the ravenwort, the gorgonis moss, has played its part. All that remains is to rise, to unveil your glory to the morning, and to face whatever challenges this new day brings, with hair as steadfast as your resolve. Light seeps across your chamber, pale gold spilling through the lattice of carved stone. You stir beneath the silk wrap, its fibers whispering against your brow as the first warmth of dawn finds you. Your limbs flex, and you feel the subtle resistance of the binding, oddly reminding you the ritual is not yet complete. You rise slowly, sliding the cloth from your head in one fluid motion. The silken cocoon falls away, revealing hair that gleams like living metal, each scale catching the nascent sunbeam and fracturing it into a spectrum of muted greens and greys. You pause, breath caught. This is the moment of truth. Kneeling before your bronze basin, you fill it with cool spring water drawn mere hours ago. The surface trembles as you settle your head above it, letting stray tendrils dip into the pool. As the water swirls, it carries away the residue of midnight infusion, leaving behind only the strength sealed within the follicle. You cup your hands, lifting liquid to your scalp, and feel the imperceptible shimmer of scales settling into place. With deliberate care, you rinse once, twice, then a third time, each pass stripping away the adhesive bee's wax seal, and with it the last vestiges of alchemy's raw edge. From the shelf beside the basin, you draw a small mortar of crushed serapis root and fractured quartz. This final scrub awakens circulation and polishers the surface of each serpentine lock. You press the mixture between your palms, kneading it gently into your scalp, feeling heat blossom beneath your touch. The quartz granules are fine enough to buff without abrasion, while the serapis root, harvested under the harvest moon, stimulates the scalp's natural oils. You massage in slow circles, coaxing the mixture from root to tip, until the water you pour afterward runs clear and cold, echoing the quiet certainty of a deep mountain spring. Standing, you pat your hair dry with a towel spun of goat hair and linen, a fabric that absorbs without friction. Each press expels moisture from beneath the silvery plates, leaving them supple yet taut. You feel the weight lessen as water departs, and the locks settle into their scaled pattern. With the towel discarded, you spread a thin veil of olive leaf oil tincture across your palms, the oil imbued with crushed laurel, and a tincture of centaur's rue glides into the scales, filling every crevice. You guide each strand away from your face, smoothing the surface until it gleams with an almost liquid sheen. Next, you reach for the final blessing, a sprig of morning jasmine nestled in dew. You hold it to your nose, inhaling its bright green fragrance, then gently run the blossoms along your locks. The petals brush against the scales, depositing a ghost of fragrance that will last until evening's first breeze. You imagine that anyone who draws near will catch a hint of jasmine and wonder at the source of such a fresh, wild scent. Yet beneath that sweetness lies the subtle whip of rue and laurel, ingredients that grant both allure and defiance. With the ritual complete, you step from the chamber and into the courtyard. The temple's pillars stand sentinel, their shadows lengthening as the sun climbs. The guards, silent and motionless, acknowledge you with a slight nod, their eyes registering the quiet transformation. You spread your shoulders and walk the marble path toward the sanctuary's threshold, head held high yet unencumbered. Each step echoes against the columns, a measured rhythm that mirrors the steady pulse you feel within your scalp, reborn from the night's labor. Outside, the air is crisp, scented with rosemary and the distant salt of the sea. You inhale, feeling the infusion of dawn's chill against your scales. They hold firm, resisting wind and gravity alike, a testament to the combined power of every herb, every incantation. You pause before the altar of Athena, polished and bare save for the offerings of olive branches and water. You bow deeply, breathing a silent word of thanks to the goddess who first endowed your hair with its living strength. Rising, you extend a finger to trace the edge of the altar. It is smooth under your touch, as though recognizing the presence of true craftsmanship, your own handiwork woven into the strands crowning your head. You imagine Medusa herself pausing here centuries ago, fingertips grazing these stones in contemplation. In that quiet communion across time, you feel kinship and purpose. Your hair is more than adornment. It is a living narrative of perseverance, of rituals passed from mother to daughter, from mortal to immortal. The crowd beyond the courtyard walls has gathered, pilgrims and supplicants who come seeking blessings of protection. They kneel upon the outer steps, their voices hushed in prayer. You move among them, your presence a silent reassurance that they too may find strength. As you pass each one, you offer a gentle touch to their heads, transferring a fraction of the ritual's potency. Their eyes catch yours, wide with reverent wonder, and you realize the true weight of your gift, to grant resilience, to shield against harm. Finally, you ascend the dais at the center of the sanctuary, where the polished stone of Athena's statue gleams like new. You stand before her, hair full and radiant, and raise your arms. In one fluid gesture you gather your locks above your head, allowing them to fall forward like a waterfall of living metal. The morning light strikes them true, casting prismatic shimmers across the courtyard. A hush falls, broken only by the distant cry of seabirds circling above. You speak the final invocation, your voice clear as the tinkling of temple bells. With scale and strand, I stand preserved, by will of night and gift of dawn reserved. Let all who gaze upon this form be held in awe, protected from the storm. The words hang in the air, vibrating the very air in the courtyard. You lower your arms and step back, feeling the completion of a cycle that began beneath the moon's soft gaze and culminates in the full glare of day. You bow once more to Athena, then turn to face those who watch. Silence blooms, heavy with awe and gratitude. As you descend the dais, your hair settles into motion, each step causing the scales to shift and catch the light anew. You move among the columns and arches, the ritual complete yet still pulsing through your veins. Ahead lies the day's duties, counsel to seekers, blessing to the vulnerable, vigilance against those who would seek harm. But you carry within you the knowledge of the elixir's strength, the memory of midnight incantations, and the affirmation of dawn's unveiling. In the moments before you step beyond the temple gates, you lift your chin and glance skyward, sun at your back. Your hair, armored, supple, and wondrously alive, flows in a breeze that feels like triumph itself. You claim this day, fortified by centuries of ritual and the promise of many more to come, each strand a testament to your resilience and grace. The sun has climbed to its zenith by the time you return to the central courtyard, its rays blazing upon the marble until every surface hums with heat. You feel the warmth seep into your skin, but your hair remains cool, the scales reflecting light like countless tiny mirrors. A thin veil of perspiration rims your temples, and you lift a hand to brush a wayward curl from your face. Even under the midday glare, each serpentine strand holds its form, unbowed by gravity or glare. You inhale the scent of sun-baked stone and lavender drifting from the herb garden beyond the colonnade, preparing yourself for the next phase of your ritual. Before the gathering of supplicants can begin, you retrieve the bronze sprinkler from its alcove. It's embossed with the silhouette of two entwined serpents, their tails coiling into an infinity loop. You fill it with the distilled elixir from last night's infusion, now slightly thickened, like dew that has settled, and add a deliberate measure of dewflower hydrosol, prized for its cooling properties. Holding the sprinkler aloft, you press the lever, releasing a fine mist that blankets your hair in a crystalline haze. The droplets bead upon each scale, refracting light into miniature rainbows that dance across the courtyard walls. With the cool mist still clinging to your locks, you step to the dais where your apprentices await. Their eyes are wide, half in reverence and half in scholarly curiosity. You lift a single strand and allow it to unwind between your fingers, the scales gliding over one another with the soft hiss of well-oiled hinges. You invite the novices to feel the texture, smooth as river-worn stones, teaching them to distinguish the resilience imparted by last night's ritual from the softer suppleness you achieve at dawn. One by one they run trembling palms along the strand, marveling as the heat-threatened mist beads off, without dulling the metallic sheen. Next comes the demonstration of resilience. You request a volunteer among the apprentices, and a young acolyte bravely steps forward, offering a ceremonial arrowhead. With a nod, you guide her to test the hair's strength by laying the arrowhead flat against a single lock and pressing firmly. The point slides harmlessly along the scale surface, leaving not a scratch. You encourage her to try again, harder. Each attempt fails to pierce, and the gathered onlookers murmur in astonishment. You smile inwardly at their reactions. This is the moment when myth congeals into tangible proof. After the demonstration, you call for fresh spring water in ornamental amphorae. You lean over the basin, tipping your head so the upper half of your hair dips into the cool liquid. The water laps around the scales, sluicing away any residual dust or particles from the exercise. The sensation is akin to dipping a heated blade into a tempering bath, a sudden sharp relief, followed by a gentle soothing calm. You twist your head side to side, ensuring the water reaches every root and every scale, until the amphora is drained of its clear gift. While your hair drains, you prepare the midday infusion, a lighter concoction meant to refresh rather than fortify. You grind petals of daystar lily, plucked at dawn when their fragrance is strongest, and blend them with crushed mint leaves in your mortar. You add a splash of silver dew water, collected from the cistern at dawn, and a handful of fennel seed for its restorative oils. You stir the mixture clockwise twice, widdershins once, and whisper a short benediction to Helios, asking that his full-strength rays soften the infusion's final texture. The result is a pale green liquid, bright as crushed jade, exuding a crisp, cooling aroma. Pouring the midday infusion into a shallow basin, you dip a section of hair and squeeze gently, allowing the liquid to run down the scales. Instantly the hair seems to sigh, releasing any tension built up under the sun's unrelenting gaze. You demonstrate to your apprentices how to apply a protective tincture along the ends, olive oil blended with a single drop of petrichor essence, which repels dust and prevents dryness. Their notebooks fill with careful sketches and notes, but your instruction is more than academic. It is the living transmission of a centuries-old craft. As the midday sun confronts the heavens, you drape your hair in a loose braid, weaving in strands of ochre ribbon, dipped earlier in a tonic of saffron and rosewater, to signal the ritual's third phase endurance. The ribbon not only symbolically binds the hair, but also releases its perfume slowly over the coming hours. You explain that this braid holds the scales in gentle alignment, protecting them against abrasive winds and allowing air to circulate freely among the coils. The apprentices mimic your movements, braiding their own hair in tentative imitation, though none possess the serpent-like luster of your own locks. The courtyard is now alive with pilgrims seeking counsel and blessings. As you walk among them, the braid swings like a pendulum, each movement fanning out the scent of saffron and rose. You pause to talk with an elder who is blind, placing your hand gently on his shoulder and passing your braid across his palm. He inhales deeply and smiles, nodding in quiet gratitude. Moments like this remind you that your hair care ritual transcends vanity. It is a conduit for comfort, reassurance and protection woven into every scale. Halfway through the hour, you retire again behind the veil of columns, where the senior priestess awaits. Her gaze is inscrutable, but you sense pride beneath her composed expression. She inspects your braid, running her fingers along its length, and offers a single nod of approval. In her hand she holds a small satchel of powdered star moss, collected when the tide left it stranded on the shore at first light. She instructs you to sprinkle a pinch onto the braid, each grain embedding itself between scales to enhance flexibility and prevent brittleness. You obey, counting the grains with ritual exactness. The senior priestess shares a cautionary tale. Once in her youth, she skipped the midday infusion under a false belief that the dawn routine was sufficient. By evening, her hair had become dry and unyielding, snapping in the wind like brittle reeds. She recounts how she had to spend a fortnight reconditioning with root paste and dewflower oil to restore lost suppleness. The tale draws an understanding murmur from the apprentices, proof once more that every step of the cycle is indispensable. When the sprinkling is complete, you unfasten the braid and let your hair fall in a cascade once again, each scale realigned and fortified. You rake your fingers through the strands, separating them in a display of dynamic fullness. The midday light strikes against you, and for a moment the whole courtyard is bathed in the subtle brilliance of living metal. The pilgrims stop in their prayers to watch you, and children point and whisper, their eyes bright with wonder. With the midday ritual concluded, you guide the apprentices one final time through the sequence misting, rinse, infusion, braid, star moss. They follow precisely, eager to replicate the performance on their own heads. You walk among them, correcting angles, adjusting tension, praising careful strokes. Their confidence grows with each repetition, and you feel the quiet satisfaction of a teacher whose craft will endure through them. As the hour wanes and the sun begins its descent, you turn toward the temple's western gate. Your hair, now fully refreshed and protected, lies in perfect alignment, resilient, responsive, and dazzling. You lift your chin and smile at the horizon, where a single cloud drifts like a ship on a golden sea. The next phase awaits the evening seal, when you will bind the last vestiges of moisture and prepare for another night of alchemy. But for now, you walk through the temple grounds, every step echoing the promise of your ritual and the unbroken lineage of power threaded through each scale. Twilight gathers over the temple, a gentle violet haze settling across the marble columns. You return to the herbarium as dusk deepens, summoned by the flicker of lantern light and the scent of burning pine resin. Your hair, still gleaming from the midday ritual, bears the faint residual aroma of saffron and rose. Yet you know that evening brings its own challenges. Cooler air that steals moisture, nocturnal breezes that tug at each scale. It is time for the evening seal, the ritual that binds the infusion's benefits and prepares your locks for the night's restorative slumber. You begin by lighting 3 candles of beeswax, infused with rosemary and bay leaf. Their flames dance in the draughty chamber, casting fluid shadows across jars of dried petals and polished mortars. You move among them with a bronze censer of frankincense resin, wafting its smoke in a measured arc to create an atmosphere of calm focus. The resin's acrid sweetness mingles with the pine, and you inhale deeply, steadying your breath. This fragrance signals transition from action to contemplation, from the sun's energy to the moon's subtle influence. At the central work table you find your phial of evening elixir, a blend of crushed night-blooming jasmine, blackthorn berry extract, and a tincture of moon milk lichen. The jasmine lends hydration, the blackthorn imparts protective tannins, and the lichen, a rare fungus gathered under crescent moons, stabilizes the infusion against the chill. The liquid shimmers like liquid ink, and you pour a small measure into a shallow silver chalice. You press your fingertips to the rim, feeling the cool metal transmit a quiet invitation. Before application, you cleanse your hair with a final fragrant steam. You fill a small cauldron with boiling spring water, adding sprigs of lavender and a handful of crushed mint. You position your head above the steam pedestal, draping a velvet hood over both cauldron and shoulders to trap the vapor. As the steam envelops your hair, each scale warms and softens, opening microscopic pores to receive the evening infusion more deeply. You close your eyes and let the mist veil your senses, the lavender soothing your thoughts, the mint sharpening clarity. When the steam subsides, you remove the hood and clap your hands to dispel lingering mist. You stand before the polished bronze mirror, hair damp and supple, with a delicate brush of horn, crafted from the carapace of a sacrificial turtle. You gently untangle any knots, guiding the scales into perfect alignment. The brush's prongs follow the natural curve of each lock, never tearing or pulling, but coaxing them into uniform direction. As you brush, soft hissing sounds accompany each stroke, a reminder of living scales shifting in concert. Now you dip your fingers into the silver chalice of evening elixir. The liquid is cool to the touch, and you let a single bead fall onto your palm. The scent is intoxicating. Heady night jasmine, tart blackthorn, and a subtle mineral undercurrent from the lichen. You close your eyes and whisper a brief invocation to Selene, beseeching her to lend her gentle light to seal the infusion's magic. Then, with slow precision, you press the elixir into every section of your hair, root to tip, using gentle kneading motions that drive the elixir into the spaces between scales. The elixir spreads as though alive, each drop dispersing into a satin sheen. You continue until every lock bears its coating. You feel a cool tingling, where the lichen stabilizers bind to the keratin plates, forming an invisible mesh that locks in moisture and repels the chill. Afterward, you hold your hands away and let the excess drip into a clay bowl below, careful not to waste a single drop of this precious preparation. Next, you construct the evening wrap, a fine veil of muslin woven with threads of silver. It is thinner than the silk cure wrap of midnight, yet infinitely more luminous, capturing selenic radiance and reflecting it back into the hair. You lift the veil and drape it from your crown, letting it cascade down like a waterfall of stars. Over this, you place a circlet of braided nightshade vines, berries removed, stems woven into a knotwork pattern. The vines are enchanted to draw residual moisture from the air, binding it into the wrap's fibers and releasing it slowly through the night. With the wrap securely in place, you sit upon a low stool before the hearth. The fire's embers glow emboldened against the growing darkness, and you fold your hands across your wrapped hair in meditative stillness. You recite the final words of the ritual, a litany known only to the elders of your temple. Seal of night, embrace my hair. Hold the dew suspended there. Moonlight sips its grace. Keep what I spun, till dawn returns with golden sun. The cadence is hypnotic, each syllable weaving a subtle enchantment into the fibers and scales. You repeat the chant thrice, listening to the echo as it drifts upward, lost in the rafters. When you fall silent, the hush feels profound, an affirmation that the ritual's energy has settled into the wrap, suffusing each scale with lasting protection. As the final candle guttered and ceased its flame, you rise and cross the chamber to the altar of Selene. You offer the spent wax, still warm, as sacrifice, running your fingers through the hardened wick. The scent of rosemary hangs faintly, even after the candle's extinction, a lingering tribute to your nightly devotion. You bow your head and turn to leave, the muslin wrap rustling like soft wings in your wake. Outside, the temple is hushed. The guardians have taken their posts, leaning against pillars or pacing silently across the courtyard. You move among them with confidence born of centuries of practice. Each step carries the faint crinkle of muslin and the muted whisper of scales shifting beneath the fabric. You pass under archways carved with symbols of moon phases, and you sense the watchful presence of Selene guiding your path. In the inner sanctum, you lie upon a cushioned pallet draped in velvet. The air is cool, scented with jasmine and resin. You cover the wrap with a fine linen cap to protect it from shifting as you sleep. The silence is deep, broken only by the distant rustle of nocturnal birds and the soft chant of night owls beyond the temple walls. You close your eyes, the evening seal's hum vibrating through the veil against your brow. Sleep comes swiftly, dreamless, as though Selene herself watches over your rest. In the dreamscape, you feel the muslin wrap pulsing with stored energy, releasing it drop by drop into each scale until all the infusion's magic has been absorbed. You sense your hair extending its strength outward, a shield of threads that binds earth and sky, night and day, into a seamless tapestry. When you awaken at the first whisper of dawn, you will remove the wrap and find your hair supple, fortified, and imbued with a quiet radiance that no mortal wind can disturb. But for now, in the cradle of night's embrace, you rest, wrapped in moonlight, sealed in ritual, and secure in the cycle of power that flows from midnight to dawn and beyond. You awaken at the cusp of dawn, roused by a faint hush that falls over the temple grounds. The linen cap still rests lightly upon your head, keeping the evening wrap secure through your sleep. You sit upright on the pallet, heart calm, mind clear. With deliberate slowness, you reach up and peel away the linen, then gently unbind the muslin and silver threads of the evening wrap. In your hand it feels cool and weightless, as though it might dissolve into mist. You fold it with reverence and set it aside. Tonight's magic has seeped into your hair, and these fibers have served their purpose. Leaning over the low basin, you allow the first rays of sun to illuminate your reflection. Your hair, freed from its nocturnal shroud, fans across the marble like a living tapestry of silver and dark green. You lift a lock and peer closely, inspecting each scale for signs of overnight crystallization or stiffness. None appear. The scales are supple yet unyielding, the elixir and evening seal having fused into an invisible mesh. You press a fingertip against your scalp and feel the gentle pulse of life beneath, a quiet affirmation of the night's ritual. Today you embark on the trial of the elements, a final assessment of your hair's strength. This ritual precedes the last phase of your routine, ensuring that the protective layers will endure both blessing and adversity. You dress in flowing linen, dyed the color of sea glass, its skirt brushing the temple floor without snagging. Over your shoulders you drape a stole of whalebone inlay, symbolizing solidarity with the ocean's depths. In one hand you carry the bronze sprinkler for elemental mist, in the other a carved shell to collect seawater. Your steps are measured and purposeful as you leave the inner sanctuary. The outer courtyard lies bathed in early light. Pillars gleam ivory, casting elongated shadows across the flagstones. A breeze stirs, cool and insistent, teasing stray strands of hair. You stand at the threshold and stretch your arms wide, letting the wind buffet your form. As gusts catch your hair, the scales ripple like living armor. You allow the air to test their hold. First a gentle zephyr, then a bracing gust from the north. Each blast lifts your locks, but they remain aligned, shimmering without tangling or bending. You murmur a short blessing to Alus, acknowledging his role in this trial. Next, you summon water. You move toward the long fountain at the courtyard's edge, its spout carved in the shape of a hippocampus. With a shell, you dip into the chilled flow, then return to the center of the courtyard. You raise your arm and sprinkle droplets across your hair, the bronze sprinkler releasing a fine mist. The water beads upon the scales, then slides off, as if drawn by a silent magnet. You feel no dampness beyond the surface, and your head remains cool. This proves the infusion's hydrophobic bond. The hair repels water while maintaining its internal moisture. The ocean test follows. You descend the marble steps to the cliffside terrace, where waves crash against sandstone at the foot of the temple. The salt-laced spray rises in columns of foam. You position yourself at the rail, heedless of onlookers, and extend your arms so the spray drenches your hair. The brine hits with stinging tremors, yet your hair barely clings a few beads before they slip away. You close your eyes, tasting salt on the breeze, and feel the protective keratin plates resist corrosion. The nightshade-derived tannins in the infusions have sealed the surface, granting resistance even to the ocean's caustic might. Dust and grit present the next challenge. You retreat to the courtyard's west side, where a low wind whips up fine sand from the desert beyond. Leaning into the gust, you let the grains strike your hair. At first you hear a soft hiss, but when you run your fingers through the locks afterward, no particles remain embedded between the scales. You place a hand on the column and brush it off, demonstrating to any apprentices that abrasion is held at bay by your treatments. The hair emerges unscathed and lustrous, proof that the midday braid and evening seal together protect against the day's harshest abrasions. Having confronted each element, you return to the herbarium. There, you prepare a clarifying tonic, a light wash of crushed peppermint leaf and lemon rind, meant to remove any residual residue from the trials without stripping the infusions. You warm the tonic slightly, then pour it over your head above the basin. The cool liquid cascades through your hair, and you massage gently with your palms, coaxing out the last traces of grit. When the water runs clear, you know the hair is wholly renewed, ready for the final seal. You spread the damp locks across a towel of fine woven linen, then pat dry with soft rhythmic presses. You observe the structural integrity of each scale, noting how the elements have tested, but not weakened their alignment. Now you spoon out a single drop of distilled honey from a crystal vial, and blend it with olive oil in your palm. The mixture is thin but potent, honey to nourish, oil to condition. You work it into your hair, focusing on the tips where wear must be countered. Each stroke serves to replenish the cuticle and reinforce the bond between scale and shaft. Finally, you perform the closure benediction. You stand before the altar of Athena, mist still glistening faintly in your hair, and recite the words passed down through your lineage. Element sets test and fire sets kiss. Earth sepsins embrace and ocean sepsis. By these trials now complete, hair shall hold its strength replete. You lower your hands and feel a subtle hum, as though the temple itself echoes your affirmation. You allow a moment of silence to settle. The courtyard is still, save for distant gull cries and the whisper of wind. You gather your supplies, the shell, the sprinkler, the shell of peppermint tonic, and return them to their places in the herbarium. Your hair, fully proven against wind, water and sand, hangs in living armor around your shoulders, gleaming like smelted metal. You know it will carry you through trials unknown, storms at sea, the lash of desert dunes, the bite of midwinter frost. With the trial of the elements complete, you step into the pavilion where your apprentices await. Their faces shine with anticipation. You demonstrate the final oil infusion and closure benediction once more, ensuring they grasp every nuance. They follow, coaxing their own hair through each step, though none yet possess the living luster yours bears. You correct their postures, praise their focus, and remind them that each element honored today must be respected with patience and discipline. As the sun dips below the horizon, you walk through the temple gates, hair resilient and undiminished. The day's labor has tested and strengthened every strand. You smile, feeling the weight of centuries of ritual lifted upon your shoulders, a promise fulfilled and a legacy assured. Tomorrow, with the midnight infusion beckoning again, you will begin anew, but for now you carry within you the quiet pride of mastery, each scale a testament to endurance and grace. Daylight filters through festooned banners as you make your way to the heart of the renewal festival. Torches line the pathway, their flames rekindled each morning by temple acolytes, symbolizing the constant rebirth of ritual. You carry your bronze sprinkler, now gleaming with traces of dewflower hydrosol, and in your other hand, the carved shell still faintly scented with peppermint from yesterday's tonic. The air vibrates with muted drumming and distant song, as local musicians, flute, lyre, and drum, perform a melody woven in triple time, echoing the three phases of your hair care cycle. You feel each beat resonate through your chest, aligning your own rhythm with the festival's heartbeat. As you step into the central plaza, you find the elder priestess waiting beside a low dais draped in white linen. At her feet rests a circle of students, new initiates, eager to witness your mastery. You nod a respectful greeting and ascend the dais, the linens whispering under your feet. She issues a brief instruction: demonstrate the binding of renewal. In response, you raise your hands and hold the sprinkler aloft. You press the lever, releasing a fine mist of midnight infusion, retained from your deepest reserves, which drifts like living dust around you. Each droplet catches sunlight, forming a hazy corona that seems to suspend time itself. The initiates watch with rapt attention as you step forward, hair unbound in a grand display of living metal. You tilt your head to one side, and the infusion mist settles on the scales, brightening them with an opalescent sheen. While the crowd murmurs in awe, you begin the binding chant, your voice rising above the instruments. The words are older than memory, passed across generations of temple guardians. With each phrase, you sweep your hands through your hair in a flowing motion, left to right, right to left, then over your crown, coating every strand in the restorative brew. When you finish, the plaza falls silent save for the echo of your final syllable. You move among the initiates, breaking the barrier between teacher and student. Each receives a gentle sprinkling of the infusion directly from your palm. They inhale deeply, eyes closed, as the scent of nightshade and myrrh fills their senses. You instruct them to part their hair into sections and sprinkle the remaining hydrosol over their locks. Under your patient guidance, they replicate your earlier motions, learning to bind intention to each gesture. You offer corrections, looser grip, more rotation, and praise when their hands move with confidence. In these moments you see not only acolytes, but the future custodians of the ritual. After the infusion, you guide the crowd through the next phase, the festival braid. You retrieve lengths of pale blue ribbon, threaded with gold filaments, symbolic tokens of renewal. With practiced ease, you gather your hair at the nape and fold it into a 3-strand braid, weaving the ribbons through each pass. You explain to onlookers that this braid represents continuity across seasons and lifetimes. As you secure the end with a silver clasp shaped like wheat ears, you encourage the initiates to braid their own hair, offering guidance when a ribbon slips or a twist falters. Laughter and hurried apologies ripple through the circle as novices learn through small mistakes. When every head bears a braid, you call for the ceremony of the offering. 2 attendants bring forward trays of white blossoms, jasmine, lavender, and hellebore, each plucked at dawn. You place a single flower at the base of each braid, tucking petals into the weave so they rest flush against the scales. The elders chant blessings as you work, invokes of health, of beauty, of protection. You sense the energy swell, a shared current flowing from the dais through every strand of hair in the plaza. The blossoms, fragrant and tender, symbolize the fragility and strength bound within the ritual. Next comes the communal anointing. You dip the carved shell into an amphora of distilled summer rainwater, blended with crushed green coral, a rare mineral that grants resilience against sun and salt. Returning to the dais, you lift the shell high so droplets shimmer in the sunlight as they fall. One by one, you anoint each initiate's braid, droplets beading on the scales and dissolving into a fine sheen. The elders chant in unison, voices entwined like the threads of the braid itself. The drumbeat quickens, and the initiates raise their hands skyward, as though lifting their hair to the gods. The festival's final moment approaches the dance of renewal. Musicians shift into a faster tempo, and you step off the dais to lead the circle. You move in a slow spin, the braid swinging in a great arc, scales flashing rhythmically. Each turn disperses the infusion mist still lingering in the air, blessing the surrounding crowd. You guide the circle through 3 rounds, weaving between torch stands and temple columns. The initiates mirror your steps, feet gliding on sand-dusted marble, arms tracing patterns in the air. You feel the collective energy bloom, a living tapestry of motion and scent. As the dance concludes, you raise your voice in the closing invocation, calling upon Athena, Helios and Selene to witness the reawakening of these treatments. The crowd echoes your words, a chorus carried on the late morning breeze. The final utterance hangs in the air, a benediction for the next cycle of care, until midnight's ritual calls the community once again. You bow deeply to the assembled onlookers, feeling the weight of gratitude in their applause and the soft hush of reverence. The initiates return to their stations, their eyes alight with newfound purpose. You gather your tools, sprinkler, shell, ribbons, and step back into the intimacy of the temple corridors. Musicians follow, their instruments slung over shoulders as they wind through colonnades. You breathe deeply, the scents of jasmine and hydrosol still clinging to your skin. Each inhalation reminds you of the power and responsibility you carry to preserve this living art, to teach it with both strictness and compassion. As you pass under the archway carved with the owl of Athena, you touch the relief gently, a silent vow to honor the cycle of renewal that sustains both hair and spirit. In the hush that follows the festival's crescendo, you know the ritual will settle into memory today, but it will live again tonight. The apprentice's trial awaits at dusk, and with it the chance to guide one soul through the full sequence of rituals you've taught. But for now, you savor this moment of stillness, standing at the nexus of tradition and innovation, hair gleaming with the promise of renewal and resolve. The festival stones may cool, the torches may burn down, but the living thread you've woven between past and future will endure in every scale and every heart you touch. Twilight's violet veil still hovers over the temple when you arrive at the herbarium's threshold. The lamps inside flicker like distant stars, their warm glow pooling on jars of crushed petals and dried roots. You pause to gather your thoughts and breathe deeply, inhaling the mingled fragrance of myrrh and night-blooming jasmine. This evening marks the apprentice's trial, a singular rite where one chosen novice will enact the entire hair care sequence alone under your watchful eye. Your heart quickens with anticipation. The balance between instruction and observation must be perfect, for one misstep tonight could mar months of preparation. You turn and find your chosen apprentice waiting by the incense stand, a young woman whose earnest gaze speaks of resolve and reverence. Her hands are folded before her, fingers brushing against the silver chain that holds her initiation token. You offer a gentle nod, which she returns with barely restrained excitement. Remember, you whisper as you lead her into the chamber, the work you perform tonight will test not only the strength of your hands, but the steadiness of your spirit. Her eyes flick to yours, steady and bright, and you know she is ready. First, you guide her through the midnight infusion preparations. Together you select ravenwort petals, each plucked under last night's waning moon, and rodent orchid bulbs trimmed to precise length. You hand her the bone spatula and demonstrate the clockwise and counterclockwise stirs that infuse the brew with balance. Then you step back, letting her perform the 3 turns of the ladle in each direction, murmuring the ancient incantations under her breath. You listen for the correct cadence, and when her intonation wavers, you offer a soft correction. With each adjustment, you see her confidence grow. As the infusion reaches its molten mercury hue, she adds the crushed gorgonis moss and moondust motes, her movements careful yet sure. You watch the copper cauldron's rim, noting how the liquid pulses with latent energy. When she nods to signal completion, you hand her the alabaster phial, its seal intact. She fills it slowly, the mercury like stream catching lamplight in a spectrum of pale blues and greens. You remind her to seal with beeswax and to allow it to cool fully before handling. She does so without haste, and you sense her respect for the material more than mere procedure. Next comes the application of the midnight infusion itself. You lead her to the basin, where cooled spring water awaits, instructing her to part her hair in 4 sections. You demonstrate the gentle press of elixir into root and scale. Then you step aside, giving her space to anoint her own locks. Your apprentice hesitates at first, fingertips trembling as they brush the liquid through the serpentine scales. You stay silent, offering only a calm presence. With each careful stroke, her confidence blooms, the tremor fades, replaced by a quiet surety that the ritual belongs to her as much as to you. Once her hair is fully anointed, you guide her to wrap it in the silk cure cloth. She moves slowly, folding, tucking, knotting, aware that this binding will determine the potion's efficacy overnight. You offer a single suggestion when the knot appears uneven, and she adjusts it until the wrap lies snug against her crown. The silk's weight presses like a promise, and you see a soft smile of pride cross her face. You nod, acknowledging her success, then step back to let the wrap cure under midnight's hush. You usher her to rest upon the pallet in the inner sanctum. The chamber is silent, save for the cadence of her breathing and the soft rustle of silk. You share a whispered assurance, sleep and let the magic mature. Then you depart quietly, leaving her under the temple guard's watch. Also, in the courtyard's cool air, you pause to chart the night's vigil, observing how moonlight glints off marble and shadow pools in alcoves. Every surface seems alive with expectation. As dawn's first blush stains the horizon, you return to the sanctuary. The guards part reverently, revealing the apprentice still asleep, the silk wrap undisturbed. You allow her a few more moments of rest before gently waking her. Rising, she peels away the linen cap and silk cloth, revealing hair that gleams in the newborn light. You kneel beside her, allowing her to inspect the scale's alignment. Each plate reflects sunrise as if forged from living metal, and you watch her eyes widen in awe at her own handiwork. You guide her through the post-infusion rinse, demonstrating the cool spring water's role in dissolving the seal's residue. She dips her hair in the basin, letting droplets bead and slide off without seeping beyond the surface. You prompt her to use the mortar of crushed serapis root and quartz, massaging gently to buff the scales. Her movements are precise, betraying no hesitation. When the water runs clear, you know she has mastered these steps as you did long ago. Now comes the moment of truth, the demonstration of resilience. You hand her the ceremonial arrowhead and instruct her to press its tip against a single lock. She does so with measured strength, the point sliding harmlessly along the scale. Encouraged, she presses again, harder. The hair holds firm. Applause rises from the temple gallery, where acolytes have gathered to witness her success. You stand beside her, pride warming your chest as the novice bows her head in gratitude. The trial's crucible has tested her resolve, and she has proven worthy. Following the demonstration, you return to the herbarium to concoct the midday infusion. You narrate each ingredient's purpose: daystar lily petals for cooling bloom, mint for restoration, silver dew water for rejuvenation. The apprentice grinds and stirs under your calm supervision, learning to discern the proper color and aroma. When the pale green mixture stands ready, you instruct her on its application. The gentle squeeze through scales, the infusion into ends, the sensory confirmation of suppleness. She works methodically, and you see that she understands the ritual's rhythm, not merely its mechanics. Stranian Medusa. With midday's sun climbing high, you walk the apprentice through the braid step. You guide her hands as they weave pale green ribbon through her hair, explaining how the braid seals hydration and signals endurance. She follows adeptly, though her braid wavers at first. Your gentle correction steadies her, and by the third pass her movements are fluid. You secure the ribbon with a simple knot, then sprinkle star moss between scales, each grain counting as a mark of completion. Her eyes shine with accomplishment as you pronounce the midday sequence complete. As the sun dips toward evening, you prepare for the evening seal. You instruct the apprentice to light candles, steam her hair, and brush with the horn. Under your watch, she applies the cool evening elixir, whispering the invocation to Selene. Her hands are steady now, guided by the memory of steps practiced in solitude. When the silver veil and nightshade circlet settle into place, you feel the familiar hum of magic, amplified by her successful enactment. When the trial concludes, you convene the temple's elders and present the apprentice at the altar of Athena. They offer their blessing, acknowledging her mastery of every phase. You watch as she removes the veil at dawn, unveiling hair that gleams with strength and grace. You catch her eye, and in that moment, you share the unspoken bond of mentor and protege. The apprentice's trial is more than a test. It is the passing of tradition. Tonight, under moon and sun, she has woven her own story into the living tapestry of your lineage. As you stand beside her, hair scaled and shimmering, you know that the future of the ritual is secured in her capable hands. The cycle will continue, each generation adding its breath to the alchemy, each strand a testament to resilience and renewal. Dawn breaks in a soft wash of rose and gold as you awaken in the guest quarters of the remote coastal sanctuary. Last night's events still hum through your limbs, the apprentice's triumph, the festival of renewal's fervor, and you feel a sense of completion mingled with anticipation for the journey ahead. Today you travel west to the cliffside shrine of the sea nymphs, where your ritual must adapt to salt spray, high winds, and the wild rhythms of the ocean. Packing your tools: bronze sprinkler, alabaster file, silver chalice, horn brush. You tuck them into a leather satchel lined with dewy moss to maintain temperature. You braid your hair loosely for travel, whispering a short invocation to Helios to protect the infusion's potency against the sun's unfiltered glare. The city gates open to your approach, and you step onto the sun-bleached road, each scale on your head, catching dawn's light like a promise. The path winds through olive groves and terraced vineyards as you make your way toward the sea. You pause at midday under a lone cypress, its trunk gnarled by wind and time, and set out your tools on a stone ledge warmed by the sun. Unbraiding your hair, you reveal the scales gleaming in shaded emerald and silver. You prepare the midday infusion for coastal conditions: crushed fennel seeds for moisture retention, petals of daystar lily for soothing irradiated shafts, and a splash of seawater distilled in copper stills to rebuild minerals lost to salt erosion. Stirring 3 times clockwise, once widdershins, you feel the wind carrying the brew's herbal fragrance across sunlit rocks. You apply it with slow, deliberate strokes, massaging each scale until your locks glisten with dew-like beads. The ocean breeze lifts stray strands, but they remain aligned, supple beneath the infusion's protective film. Resuming your journey, you descend a rocky incline where waves thunder against basalt cliffs. Spray rises in arches of foam, and you stand at the cliff's edge, hair still wet from the infusion. You draw the bronze sprinkler from your satchel, fill it with fresh seawater mixed with crushed green coral powder, and mist your hair in a fine haze. Beads of salt water cling to each scale, then roll away, carrying residual grit without dampening the infusion within. You murmur a dedication to the Nereids, asking their favor in safeguarding your hair against the ocean's bite. Kneeling, you gather handfuls of red seaweed, harvested under full moon, and weave it into your hair as a temporary binding, its filaments imparting elasticity until evening's seal. With each wave that crashes below, you sense the infusion's magic anchoring your scales against even the sea's fiercest spray. By afternoon you reach the shrine's inner courtyard, where marble benches are carved with images of shell and wave. The senior priestess greets you, her sea-blue robes trailing salt crystals across the stone. She leads you through the saltwater trial, plunging your hair into a basin of surf-drawn water, then rubbing in a paste of crushed star moss and peppermint tonic to exfoliate any lingering residue. Under her watchful eye, you rinse with fresh spring water and pat dry with linen. You demonstrate the ponytail braid, modified for coastal winds, tying in lengths of kelp ribbon imbued with rosemary oil. The priestess nods in approval, then invites you to teach the novices who cluster beneath sea foam colored awnings. You guide their hands as they braid and apply the hydrosol mist, offering gentle corrections as wind gusts threaten to scatter their sections. Their eagerness and astonishment at your hair's resilience remind you that ritual evolves but remains anchored in shared tradition. Late afternoon brings the evening seal. You retire to a vaulted grotto lit by luminescent barnacles and lanterns hung from carved brackets. Inside, the air is cool and salty, the perfect environment for night rituals. You steam your hair above a censer of sea mint and lagoon lily, draping a velvet hood to trap vapor. The scales open like oysters to receive the evening elixir, crushed night-blooming jasmine, blackthorn berry extract, and moon milk lichen tincture. You apply it methodically, whispering the invocation to Selene as droplets absorb into each scale. Then you wrap your hair in silver-threaded muslin, knotting it with strands of driftwood bark and strands of captured moonlight, a binding that will hold moisture against the canyon breezes. The grotto echoes with your chant, and you feel the seal set into place as a gentle warmth radiates through the wrap. When you step back into dusk's grey light, the ocean's roar greets you like an old friend. You pass through the grotto entrance and into the open courtyard, where apprentices and acolytes gather to witness the coastal version of your midnight ritual. You unravel your hair just enough to show the muslin's silver shimmer, then allow it to fall in living armor across your shoulders. With a deep breath of brine and moonlight, you recite the final coastal benediction. By tide and tempest, earth and sky, guard these scales till dawn draws nigh. Sea-born strength and lunar grace join within each plated space. Silence follows, broken only by the wind's sigh and the distant calls of seabirds. You wrap your hair into a braid once more, binding salted silk ribbon through the scales, and release the novices to practice under the grotto's protective roof. Their whispered questions drift up to you. How does one maintain suppleness in gale? What if moss binds too tight? You answer with patient detail, each response guided by centuries of trial and refinement. As night deepens, you retire to a lantern-lit cell high on the cliff, overlooking the black expanse of sea. You remove the evening wrap and let your hair cascade free, the scales gleaming faintly under the lantern's glow. You perform a gentler version of the midnight infusion, a restorative tonic of moon-kissed water and crushed sea pearl powder to replenish minerals lost in the day's trials. With careful strokes, you anoint each lock, massaging the tonic into root and tip. You whisper a final prayer to Selene and Poseidon, thanking them for their guardianship. Brushing through each scale with the horn brush, you guide the strands into gentle waves, laying down the tide's rhythm in your hair's pattern. Lying on the narrow cot, you gaze at the lanterns flicker against the starlit sky. Your journey tomorrow will take you inland, across arid plains to the Canyon of Echoes, where wind-borne grit will test your infusions again. But in this moment, seated between earth and ocean, you feel the full arc of your ritual cycle, from midnight infusion to dawn reveal, midday braid to evening seal, coastal variation to reflective renewal. Each scale on your head bears its own tale of elements confronted and resolved, a living tapestry woven from moonlight, herb and tradition. As sleep drifts upon you, you whisper a promise to continue, to teach and to adapt, ensuring that your consecrated hair care ritual endures, unbroken, across every boundary of land and sea. You return to the temple under a sky still softened by dawn's first light, the road behind you marked by footprints pressed into dusty marble. Each step echoes with the memory of coastal storms, sun-baked plains, and the apprentice's triumphant trial. As you pass beneath the carved owl of Athena, you feel the culmination of every ritual: midnight infusion, dawn reveal, midday braid, evening seal, flowing through you like a single, unbroken thread. The scent of night-blooming jasmine and crushed myrrh still clings faintly to your hair, a lingering testament to tides crossed and trials met. Here, in the sanctuary's cool hush, you will perform the final rite, the closure of legacy. Within the inner chamber, the bronze basin gleams like a muted mirror. You set down your tools: horn brush, silver chalice, alabaster phial, arranged in a perfect arc upon the marble slab. In the quiet, you pause to steady your breath, letting the morning's serenity settle into your bones. Then, lifting the phial of distilled elixir one last time, you pour a single bead of liquid down the center part of your hair. The drop catches in your palm before you press it into the roots, massaging gently southward to the tips. This final application is lighter than before, a hint of moon dust mixed with dawn water, meant to seal both strength and softness without weight. As the elixir absorbs, you draw out the horn brush and comb through each strand, feeling the scales align beneath your fingertips. There's a soft hiss as the plates nestle against one another, clicking into perfect harmony. You brush methodically, front to back, side to side, each pass smoothing away residual tension. In this gesture, you honor the countless practitioners whose hands once held these tools, and whose devotion ensured the ritual's survival through ages of upheaval and change. You recognize that your own touch now carries that responsibility to wield tradition not as a rigid code, but as a living art. With your hair polished and prepared, you reach for the final mantle, a cocoon of silk as pale as new moonlight, woven with silver threads that refract every stray ray. You wrap it around your head in a slow spiral, starting at the nape and working upward until only your profile remains visible. The silk presses softly, hugging each curve of your skull, a gentle reminder that power is both shield and shelter. Once secured with a single twist, you step back and observe the reflection in the basin. There you see not only Medusa, the Gorgon of legend, but also the guardian of a ritual that binds past to future. You turn and make your way to the grand hall, where a circle of apprentices and elders waits. Their faces are drawn with anticipation, but their eyes shine with trust. As you enter the room, silence greets you like a living presence. You move to the center and stand tall, the wrapped silk glimmering faintly. Raising your hands, you begin the invocation of continuity, voicing words kept secret within the temple's vaulted archives. Through moonlit nights and golden dawn, through sea-swept shores and desert sips brawn, By these strands I weave my plea. Renew this craft in all who see. Your voice resonates against stone arches, carrying the weight of every life, your own and those who came before. When you finish, heads bow in unison. You unwrap the silk in a single fluid motion, allowing your hair to cascade free like a waterfall of living metal. Light splits across the scales, casting a dance of prisms on every column. In that moment, you are both teacher and student, myth and maker. Stepping through the circle, you place a gentle hand on each apprentice's shoulder, transferring a fraction of the ritual's essence through touch alone. Their hair responds, each strand quivering with readiness, as though thirsting for the next infusion. You offer brief guidance. One touch here, one word of encouragement there. Then release them to practice under the temple's watchful gaze. You smile as you see hands moving with newfound confidence, braid patterns taking shape, elixirs stirred with reverent precision. In their eager expressions you glimpse the future custodians of this living tradition. At length, the ceremony draws to a close. You return to the basin. One final time for the closure benediction, a simple rinse of spring water, punctuated by crushed lavender petals that scent both hair and heart. You lean forward, letting the water sluice through your locks in a steady flow, each drop washing away fatigue and doubt. When the basin runs empty, you stand and pat your hair with a towel of goat hair and linen, pressing gently until only the merest whisper of dampness remains. You finish by applying a few drops of olive leaf oil tincture, anointing the scales like sacred armor. Gathering your tools back into their leather satchel, you feel the ritual cycle complete. The weight of legacy, once heavy upon your shoulders, now feels light, a promise rather than a burden. You step outside onto the courtyard's mosaic floor, where sunlight warms the stones and wind carries the distant cry of seabirds mingled with temple bells. Here, where tradition meets tomorrow, you breathe deeply and raise your face to the sky. In this final moment, you understand that a hair care routine is more than a sequence of steps. It is an act of devotion, a covenant between self and world, myth and memory. Through it, you embody both vulnerability and strength, grace and grit. Your scales protect you as armor and adorn you as art, woven with intention and consecrated through ritual. Each application, each braid, each seal is a prayer uttered in silence, an offering to the unseen forces that shape our fates. Turning toward the temple gates, you walk with measured steps, hair catching every stray gleam, like fragments of dawn. Behind you, the apprentices carry on their practice. Ahead, the horizon stretches wide with possibilities. Kendus, Azum, Acheshi, the path of ritual is unending. Tonight, you will stir the midnight infusion once more. Tomorrow, you will guide a new novice through the apprentice's trial, and always your hands will trace the outlines of scales that tell the story of resilience, renewal, and the quiet power of dedicated care. As you step into the brightness of a new day, you carry within you the knowledge that every strand of hair, no matter how small, can hold the weight of legend. And so the cycle turns again, timeless and unbroken, by moon and sun, by earth and sea. You renew the ritual that made Medusa more than a monster. She became a testament to endurance, elegance, and the enduring magic of care.